Interesting developments as it relates to the IDF this weekend. The White House still remains silent over the flotilla confrontation. Now it looks like Lebanon, which is saturated with Hezbollah terrorists, has now decided, well, then now would be a pretty good time to pick a fight with Israel. The French press service is now reporting that within the last hour, Lebanon's military fired anti-aircraft artillery at Israeli warplanes that were flying over Lebanon, according to a senior Israeli security official. Our aircraft have been targeted by the Lebanese anti-aircraft guns while flying over southern Lebanon, and there was no damage, according to the official. Why not? With worldwide sort through some of this, we have terrorism analyst Brigitte Gabriel, New York Times bestselling author of They Must Be Stopped, and also the president of actforamerica.org, David Horowitz, also a New York Times bestselling author and frontpagemag.com owner. What's going on, guys? Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Sean. Good to be with you.
Thanks, Sean.
David, it seems like...
I'm the editor of Front Page Magazine.
I'm sorry. Did I say owner?
Okay.
I just elevated you to an entrepreneurial position.
It's probably Act for America is a great organization. I think that's Melanie Morgan, but that's okay.
Oh, okay. Well, Act for America is also Brigitte's title. Am I right, Brigitte?
It's Brigitte's. That's right. It's Brigitte's.
That's right. Act for America, the largest national security organization in the United States.
Well, let's get your reaction to the worldwide condemnation of Israel over, here we have an example where Israel warned this group, this so-called group of peace activists again and again and again to respect their blockade. They told them there'd be consequences. They precipitated this confrontation by refusing to listen to the warnings. And now, all of a sudden, we see the results, and the world condemns Israel for this, David.
This flotilla of 8 ships and 800 people, it was launched by an organization called IHH. It's a Turkish Hamas front. This is an organization that has helped Al-Qaeda, Saddam Hussein, and Hamas. And what's going on here is part of a long-running effort to destroy, 60-year effort to destroy the Jewish state. But Hezbollah, if you read the military analysts, they're planning a war. There is going to be a war there, thanks to the weakness and perfidy of the Obama administration, which has invited this. Hezbollah, the blockade was there. After all, Israel made a huge mistake in withdrawing its troops from Gaza, which is now a terrorist state. And ever since then, since the Israeli withdrawal, there have been 7,000 rockets fired into Israel and massive smuggling across the Egyptian Gaza border, which was closed by Egypt and has now been opened. And this was an attempt to break the blockade by Hamas. These people would...
But in terms of world opinion, David, you'd have to say on some level, because the world is topsy-turvy in terms of its moral compass.
Well, the world is exactly where it was when Hitler was on the rise. From a Jewish perspective, there's nothing really new in this. What was remarkable was the period between 1945 or 1948, when Israel was created, and the 1960s, when the world seemed to say, no, we're not going to accept the extermination of the Jews again. I mean, European anti-Semitism is all over the place. I mean, the fact that, look, these Hamas, they're Nazis. They say they want to exterminate the Jews. It's in their charter. They have, if you want to call it, an interpretation of Islam, along with the head of Turkey, the president of Iran, which considers it a religious mission to exterminate the Jews. That's what's going on.
All right, let me see if I can bring Brigitte in here, because let's break this down, because David, I think, is 100% right. So here we have Hamas is at war with Israel. Their charter calls for the elimination of Israel. Israel has, in a year, 7,000 rockets fired into its cities, at its hospitals, at its schools, and among the general population, including terror attacks on top of this. So to protect themselves from watching Hamas get rearmed, Israel institutes this blockade, which, by the way, is a strategy used formally by Europe and the United States. in past conflicts. So Israel is in a state of war. Hamas's charter says to extinguish the entire state of Israel. So Israel warns this flotilla, don't come into this blockade, don't try to break this blockade. They're warned repeatedly. So they precipitate a crisis, Israel defends itself, and then the world condemns Israel, saying their actions are disproportionate to what happened, in the words of Sarkozy. Tell me what's wrong with this picture.
There is something very wrong with this picture, because we are seeing, first of all, anti-Semitism rising all over the world. It's amazing how over 200 countries at the UN can come together and agree on condemning Israel. It's so hard to get all these countries to agree on one thing. They haven't even yet condemned North Korea for killing 46 South Korean sailors in the ship that they bombed, and here they are condemning Israel. But the problem that we're facing here, Sean, is the radical Islamists have become so sophisticated in their public relations campaign that Israel is losing the information war. And here's what I mean by that. This group, supposedly activists who are bringing humanitarian aids to Israel, this is a radical Islamic group called IHH. It was founded in 1992, and it was banned by Israel for its affiliation with Hamas and the Union of the Good. IHH is a member of the Union of the Good, which is ironically led by the Muslim Brotherhood leader Yusuf al-Qaradawi, who has issued fatwas for the killing of Americans and Jews. He is designated a terrorist by the United States as well as Great Britain, and he's not allowed entry into both countries.
But here's what I don't understand. Here we all three of us, and I mentioned in the last hour as well, David, the IHH, not only are they a group with close ties to the global jihadist terrorist network, that it also includes Al-Qaeda. And we know that other members of the flotilla came from the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. There was a French intelligence report suggesting the IHH provided documents to terrorists permitting them to pose as relief workers. Yeah. So I think Brigitte is probably dead on, but in some ways, 200 nations condemn Israel. They've yet to condemn North Korea for the attack on South Korea. And you got to wonder where the world's moral compass is. And more specifically, David, at this moment, where's the Obama administration?
Well, the Obama administration has set this up from the beginning by his overtures to the Muslim world, which was appeasement, basically, bowing to the Saudis, appealing to Iran, turning a blind eye when Iran brutally suppressed the protesters against its rigged elections, doing nothing to stop Iran from building nuclear weapons. This is the 30s all over again. This is appeasement inviting war. They know that they're not going to get a strong response out of the United States. The UN is controlled by the Islamic Conference. They just had a conference on nuclear-free zone in the Middle East.
Here's what's frightening to me, David, is that I think the world now is on a path towards inevitable war, and it's in the Middle East. It seems to me,
exactly right.
Go ahead.
It's been on this path for years now. The Israeli pullouts from Lebanon in I think it was 2000 and something, and from
2000.
Gaza. 2000. All the pressure has been on Israel, and people just turn a blind eye to the fact that these are Nazis. The Islamic radicals, Hezbollah, Hamas, Iran, the Shia in Iran, they have sworn to destroy, to wipe America and Israel from the face of the earth.
It seems that...
You cannot ignore what they say.
It's in their charter. This is what I don't understand. In Hamas's own charter, to calls for the destruction of Israel. Here, I just gave a report that they're on the verge. Now, Iran could make 2 nuclear bombs as we speak here. And they have repeatedly threatened to wipe Israel off the map. It seems like for some reason the moral compass of the world is so twisted and so distorted that we've got to just, frankly, backwards. And it seems like you would think that
Obama has spent his whole time in office trying to appease Iran, trying to be reasonable to Iran and putting pressure on Israel. This part of the terrorist propaganda machine to call themselves civil rights workers.
I'll tell you what I'm afraid of, and I'll give the last word to Brigitte. I'm afraid that we're going to look back on this weekend, this flotilla, these commandos, the IDF, and the world reaction to this as the beginning of the war. as if it hadn't been going on already. But I mean the beginning of real hostilities now that are going to emerge in the region. I hope I'm wrong.
Unfortunately, Sean, you are not. We know that Hezbollah and Hamas in Gaza were planning on opening two fronts against Israel this summer. We already know, I talk to people in Lebanon all the time and get intelligence. We know that submarines have brought chemical weapons to Hezbollah just in the last 4 weeks. They were seen offloading them from the ships into the port in Beirut to Hezbollah. So we knew that Hezbollah was preparing on launching something against Israel this summer. We know that what's happening right now with the flotilla is another front that Hamas and Gaza is trying to launch. You look at Iran and Syria, they feel so empowered because they know that the Obama administration is not paying attention, nor that America is going to do anything to get involved in protecting Israel. And they look at this summer as their window of opportunity to really launch something very dangerous in the Middle East and attack Israel. And I believe we are witnessing the opening stages of this summer war.
I don't disagree with you. I wish we were both wrong. Thank you, David. Thank you, Brigitte. Appreciate